I was 67 when they tried to take the block from me. They didn't know who I was. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't care anymore. The world forgets men like me, men who served, bled, and buried parts of themselves in deserts far from home. But I remembered, and I still watched. I had a rhythm. Wake at 5. Coffee black. 10 minutes of old joints waking up. Then a slow patrol down East 13th, just like I used to sweep alleys in Kandahar. Not because anyone told me to, but because someone had to dot my name's Roy Mathers. Retired Master Sergeant, U.S. Army. 3 tours, Afghanistan, Iraq, and a final deployment no one ever talks about. Classified, they said. That part of me stayed buried in a file somewhere in Langley. The rest of me moved to a second-floor apartment above Ramirez's grocery store, just south of the Cleveland Flats. The neighborhood wasn't bad yet, but it was changing. Younger men walking in packs, hooded faces, quick exchanges at corners, music louder than it used to be, doors bolted earlier, eyes not meeting in the hallway. I knew the signs. You don't fight in wars without learning to smell the rot before it shows, Dot. It started small. Ramirez told me some kid snatched a bag of rice and ran. Next week, his nephew got jumped walking back from school, and the graffiti came. Not the usual teenage crap. These were marks tags that claimed territory. I didn't say much. Just watched, listened, collected patterns like I used to collect coordinates, Dot. And then they came to me, Dot. It was a Friday. I remember because I was cleaning my old boots. Habit. Hadn't worn them in a year. But they still smelled like dust. And duty. That's when the knock came. Sharp. Aggressive. Not the kind neighbors give. 3 of them. Teens. Maybe early 20s. Faces half covered. One had a bat. The other 2 had weight in their jackets. Not fear weight. I could see it in how their shoulders tilted. Firearms. Cheap ones, probably. But deadly all the same. You, Roy? One asked. I didn't answer. Just stared. That was usually enough. We heard you've been watching, the one with the bat said. That you think this block's yours. I said nothing. Just stepped aside and let them see the frame behind me. My shadow against the American flag I'd hung on the back wall. The photos, the medals, and the laminated article from Stars and Stripes with my name bolded in black. They didn't care. Stay out of it. Old man, the leader hissed. This ain't your fight. I closed the door, quietly, locked it, then sat down and finished. Cleaning the boots. Asterisk that night. I didn't sleep. Not out of fear, out of memory. I remembered the first time I heard a door get kicked in. 2003, Ramadi. The way chaos screamed before a single shot was fired. This was no different. Urban combat is always the same. Geometry, timing, observation. The same rules, just different names. I started mapping the block. I knew who lived where. I knew whose lights were always off, who worked nights, who left town every weekend. I watched the corner kids and how often they rotated. One of them, skinny kid with a scar on his cheek, was always posted by the mailbox across from the liquor store. He whistled every time someone passed. A signal. Amateur, but effective. I didn't want war. Not again. Not at 67. But I wouldn't let them take it. Not this street. Not while I was still breathing, Dot. So I started small, Dot, first. I reclaimed the alley. Behind Ramirez's. I set up motion lights. Took an old broken security camera, rewired it, and left it blinking in plain sight. They don't know what's real. Fear works better when it's visible. Then I made myself seen. I cleaned graffiti in the early mornings. I swept sidewalks. I picked up glass and left empty shells on the kid's stoop. Just one. Just enough to say, I know. It escalated fast. One morning, I found my mailbox smashed. Another night, I heard someone trying my door. I reinforced it, triple bolts, steel bar. And I moved my cot closer to the hallway. I went back to drills. Push-ups, pull-ups, painful, but I did them. Slowly, my body remembered. My hands stopped shaking when I gripped the coffee pot. My hearing tuned in again. The neighborhood had changed, but I was changing too. Then came the fire. They torched Ramirez's truck. Middle of the night. Gasoline. And pride going up in flames. I got there before the fire trucks. Pulled him out coughing. He cried like a kid. Said he was leaving, but I didn't. I stayed. Because wars aren't always overseas. Sometimes they come back with you. Sometimes they wait. Asterisk, it was a Thursday. Same kids. Same block. But this time, they brought company. 5 of them. One with a sawed-off. Another had brass knuckles like he thought he was in a movie. I was ready. I stood in the street. Not armed. Not afraid. Just present. Like I used to be in checkpoints where death lingered inches from breath. You think you a hero, old man? One of them spat. No, I said. But I've buried enough of them to know what one looks like. The first swing came wild. I stepped aside, grabbed the wrist, dislocated it with a twist I hadn't used in 20 years. The next one ran gun, half raised. I dropped low, kicked his knee in, sent him screaming. They weren't trained, just angry, untamed fire. But fire without discipline eats itself. Neighbors came out, phones up, lights on, voices shouting. They ran, cowards in shadows. By morning, the street was different, silent. Not the silence of fear, but of respect. 2 days later, a man from the city came, said he'd heard about the incident, offered me a plaque. I declined, asked instead for better lights on the corner. He agreed. And Ramirez. He stayed, rebuilt his truck, gave me free coffee for life. I didn't win a war. I just reminded a street that not all soldiers retire. Some of us stay behind. Some of us remain. Watchman. And every morning, at 5, I still lace the boots, because someone has to.